which there is a different feel to a second Trump administration compared with the first, and plenty here in Westminster have been putting in the groundwork to try and anticipate this scenario. So the Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary David Lammy met Donald Trump at Trump Tower in New York at the end of September during their visit to the UN General Assembly in New York. That was the first time the two men, the Foreign Secretary and the Prime Minister, had met Donald Trump. And David Lammy has also met J.D. Vance, the soon-to-be Vice President. So they've been trying to build bridges. David Lammy using language, for instance, in a speech recently saying that Donald Trump was often misunderstood. So he is trying to build bridges, but it's also worth remembering in Mr. Lammy's case, he said some pretty disobliging things about Donald Trump in the past, calling him a tyrant in a toupee. So I think there's an expectation here that things will be different, things will be bumpy, things are not likely to be smooth, but as Lord Hammond was reflecting, where they can work out deals that can be done with Washington, that kind of transactional relationship, if you like, with a guy who sees himself as a deal maker, they hope that that connection, that personal connection that Donald Trump has with the UK, might count for something.
Chris Mason, thank you. It's interesting, isn't it, seeing these messages of congratulations from world leaders that they are assuming he's won. He's not yet technically at the winning point, but Donald Trump thinks he's won, and everybody seems to be accepting that it's over.
Certainly at Trump campaign headquarters. Let's go back there now because we can speak to Hogan Gidley, former White House press secretary under Donald Trump's in his first term. Hogan, good to see you. We spoke to you a little bit earlier. You know, there were some tense moments as people didn't know what to expect, and then as the evening progressed, I imagine things are feeling pretty good right now.
Yeah, absolutely. People in the room were obviously cautiously optimistic to begin the evening, but as the numbers began to come in, it was kind of what we had predicted, what we had heard about internally as the massive numbers of early votes had racked up for Donald Trump, and Kamala Harris was underperforming in the categories she needed to perform well in. And so when it became election day and the turnout apparatus was fully engaged, obviously those numbers were really insurmountable for their side to try and take away from Donald Trump at that point.
Yeah, Hogan, just as we were looking at the numbers, obviously Donald Trump at 266 right now, but it is all but certain at this point that he will win as we're waiting for one more state to come through. Where do you think his closing message and the message that he had to voters was successful?
Well, because it was simple and it was real. I mean, for a long time, the Democrat Party and Kamala Harris was basically telling the American people, oh, no, you aren't paying more for gas and groceries. The economy's really good, which is offensive because they know better than that. Oh, no, your southern border isn't wide open. It's good for your neighborhoods to flood them with illegal aliens. But the American people are like, no, it's not good. It's a drain on our resources, and it's dangerous for many people in our communities. Donald Trump closed his campaign with a very simple message, and it was a question Ronald Reagan asked years ago. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? The obvious answer is no. And then on top of that, he would kind of end it by saying, Kamala Harris broke it, and I'm going to fix it. Those things are simple and clear, and they also provide a contrast, a stark one, between the failures of the last 4 years and the successes of the Trump administration. So that combined with the unlikability and the inauthenticity of Kamala Harris really proved problematic for her and the campaign.
And Hogan, as we're waiting for that final state that would put Donald Trump over the top, over that 270 number, from his speech that he delivered at headquarters tonight, what do you think his priorities are when he gets back to the White House?
Yeah, I think he's been pretty clear about that. I think getting a handle on the southern border for sure, making sure people that are in this country illegally and unlawfully, people who have committed crimes need to go back to where they came from in the first place. They don't have a right to be in this country. That, I think, is important. I think it's important for Donald Trump to focus on cutting taxes and helping this economy again so people can afford the simple goods and the cost of living that has skyrocketed so badly under this administration. And, of course, bringing down crime, working to broker deals around the world to prevent wars from breaking out, too. The simple things that the American people care about most is exactly what Donald Trump focused on. He did that in his first term. And so when the left would try to point to him and say he's going to be this crazy person or this erratic person, it didn't really ring true. In fact, it rang quite hollow because Donald Trump already was president, and they saw the successes and they remembered them. You know, we used to have to point back to the 80s to say, look how good it was under Reagan. Just a few short years ago, you could afford gas and groceries, and you can't today, and that's because of Kamala Harris. And so moving forward, I think his priorities are going to be just that, what the American people want to see happen in their own lives so they can see improvements, not just for today, but for generations to come.
What about his style, his tone going forward, Hogan? I mean, will Donald Trump 2.0 be different from the original Donald Trump as president?
Yeah. No, yeah, he's going to be totally flat moving forward. No, of course not. Donald Trump is Donald Trump. And I would argue in large part, you know, that's what makes it difficult for people to understand him. They want the personality, or they want the policy without the personality. But D.C. is so entrenched and it's so tough there that you need someone with a strong personality. You're not going to get the policies without it. So you kind of have to take the good with what some people would call the bad in this and just ride it out. You got 4 years. Donald Trump's not going to hold anything back. This country's slid way down a deep, dark precipice in the last several years. He's going to have to do a lot of things to bring it back. And I think he's got the tone, the temperament, and of course, the stamina to get it done.
All right, Hogan, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Still a lot of people there at 20 past 3 in the morning.
Indeed.
US time.
Well, you know, it's a celebration, of course. Not everyone wants to go home yet.
If you've been campaigning for 2 years, an extra few hours is nothing. Is it 20 past 3 there, 24 minutes past 8 UK time? And talking of the UK, we've just had that statement you can see on your screens from the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who says, "Congratulations, President-elect Trump, on your historic election victory. I look forward to working with you in the years ahead. As the closest of allies, we stand shoulder to shoulder in defence of our shared values of freedom, democracy and enterprise. From growth and security to innovation and tech, I know that the UK-US special relationship will continue to prosper on both sides of the Atlantic for years to come." We can speak now to Nick Bryant, former BBC correspondent here in Washington, who's written extensively about the history of the US presidency. Hi to you, Nick, who joins us from Australia. Nick, just explain, given zoom out time-wise, given your historic view of the presidency of America, is J.D. Vance right to say that this is a political comeback, the likes of which the United States of America has never seen before?
Yeah, he's absolutely right about that. America's 45th president will become America's 47th president, and it will be Donald Trump on the inaugural platform on January the 20th, 2025, swearing his allegiance to the Constitution. It's an amazing comeback. I saw a preview of it, John, about 6 weeks after January the 6th, 2021, when Donald Trump had incited his mosh pit of MAGA supporters to overrun the Capitol and to try and overturn the election of 2020.